Hello everyone, Elijah here, and today we will be talking about Guild Wars and what not to do during your Guild War attacks. Now, I will be commentating over a video that I recorded for my Guild Wars that I did yesterday, and we're basically going to be taking my losses. I can't really show them, um, but we're basically going to be looking at my losses and things of that nature and things I could have done better. And hopefully, it could be very educational and giving a little bit of advice on how I think you should go about doing your attacks so that you don't make any dumb mistakes like I did. Now, before I get into that, I want to start off by talking about guild defense teams and just briefly going over some ideas I think may help you and your guild defense teams if you are struggling with trying to figure out who should I have on my defense. Now, in the current meta, I would say most guild defense teams that do well typically revolve around having two speed contesters, one team that has like a more cleave setup, and the other team that has more like a slower RNG setup. Examples of that, so obviously you have my defense. These units are just built very well. Other than RB, he could be built a lot better. But other options for like in place of like RB right here could be like APOC Ravi. Obviously you can replace Ran with like Cerise. My Cerise isn't built, so it's yeah. Cerise is also a good option to place here, as well as Para, who I do not own. So those are some options for replacements, as well as for like another team for like Celilius type teams. I typically see this is where the RNG teams go into play. So for the most part, people will pair Celilius with units that can either basically RNG win like a fight pretty easily. So like instead of Mercedes, who I have built, some people will have this defense. I also have seen people who are starting to have this type of defense setup because it essentially makes it so that any green unit you bring to try to deal with Rim, you have to deal with this wall. And this is a big wall, and it's very hard to deal with. And then there's a lot of RNG here. Another bit of advice I should say is build your units, if you can, differently from how they would be built meta-wise. And what I mean by that is like having a Degen army RB here, and I actually ended up losing one of my attacks because the Arbiter Vildred was on counter and Moonlight Dreamblade, which I was not expecting that at all, and he kept counterattacking me, and it kind of like lost me that fight, but we'll go over that later in the video. Um, it just could be like completely unexpected. Something that really like, you know, puts people on their toes or just like completely catches them off guard. That could be, let's see, what's another defense strategy that I see? Oh, I also will leave a link in the description to a website that essentially goes over, it's from one of the top 30 guilds or ranking guilds, and they essentially just have the analytics of guild defense win rates and what works well, what's working well for them, what has the highest win rates, things of that nature. Um, that can like help you also get an idea, right? But if you do not have these units and you don't have all the MLs and you don't have, then go for units that I know we all have Mercedes, right? Go for units that are heavily RNG. Like you just want as much RNG as possible that could ruin them. My Mercedes is built really slow on counter set, so if she does counter plus Magic for Friends, she is basically nuking their entire team. It's just what's gonna be. She is 100% nuking. She's built super high damage on counter, but very slow. So it is heavily reliant on the RNG. But if she does get that RNG off, then it works very well. And then Reamer is here to deal with any like ice units that they may bring into dealing with this team setup. So yeah, I think that's all I really need to say about guild defense setup. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut to my attacks that went horribly, just to give advice when it comes to drafting and things of that nature. Alright, so essentially I'll be skimming through this video that I recorded for my guild attacks. As you can see, we were losing this pretty hard, but even if you are like necessarily not doing well guild-wise, you still shouldn't like jeopardize and like just completely throw your attacks, right? Because you're missing out on getting, I guess, as many mystics as you would if you were to win all of your attacks. And we all want our mystics. We all want to do our ML summons and things of that nature. So yeah. To start things off, I think in this video I go over my defense team and how it was doing. Uh, it is it is doing well, right? When it comes to defense teams, they're not going to be fully 100%. Having teams that have like a bunch of draws and things like that, that's essentially a good like baseline that you want. If you're getting draws, if people are kind of like, and that's the whole kind of like setup with having two speed contesters, is that not everybody is going to have enough are going to be able to contest your speed. They're not necessarily going to have the units to do so. So they're going to contest your speed with one team, and then the other team, they're going to go for a more slower, hopefully winning the draft by being a more slower, tankier synergy. And in these situations, they kind of didn't. Um, but yeah, just another, bit of advice about guild stuff. So this is my first attack. I'm just gonna skip to it. Essentially, what happens here is that rule number one, always expect the worst possible stuff to happen in your attacks. Just expect the worst. Expect literally every single thing to go wrong. Expect you to get, expect your Rylet with his 70% evasion to not evade a single thing. Like, just expect those things, because 9 times out of 10, because it always happens, that is what is going to happen. Also, try your best to make a team that isn't reliant on you kind of like, isn't too heavily reliant on debuffs. Like, if you miss a debuff or they resist, like, those type of setups, like if I went with like a Ran Iseria cleave here and they just resist everything, um, it would have completely ruined me in this whole like attack. You know what I mean? If I went with that. But in this setup, my team one, I don't go with that for team two. I think I changed that, yeah. For team one here, my thought process was that I control the Arby, turn reset the Rimuru, hopefully one-shotting him, and then kind of slowly then recover. There was really no actual game plan to doing well here. There was like nothing that could like actually guarantee that I really won this other than just RNG working in my favor, which really messed me up and reason why I definitely lost this attack super hard. The bottom team, I was 100% RNGing hoping that Iseria Bomb would not land on Spectene, and that is not a good type of drafting strategy to have, where you are like putting like what? I have like she lands 2 bombs, I have like a 1 out of 3 chance that the bomb just so happens not to land on my Spectene, or she just resists all the debuffs. Like it's basically not gonna happen. Like, it's very rare for that to happen. Also, I was RNGing hoping that my Politis would stun them, and that's like another thing. Being heavily reliant on debuffs and RNG to win and end up losing in the long run. So I can skip through. I guess we can go over these attacks in more details to see kind of like what happened and just how so for starters, their Sea Lilius is obviously faster. There's really no chance of me outspeeding her, and also me not being the brightest person, completely forgetting about the fact that she is going to strip my evasion buff from my Rylet, making him extremely squishy. I went with the Soul Burn just to not get resisted, but it still really wasn't enough, to be completely honest. it doesn't change anything. Um, and in this moment, the Rimuru counters. He goes in onto my Rylot. He hits super hard. Um, and that's the game basically ends here, right? My Rylot being basically dead kind of like ends it for me. I think I should have S3 there. I don't know why I didn't. I was scared that the Rimuru or no, the Arby would just get one shot and then he gabs my entire team. But that didn't really matter. I should have just went for the S3 just because of the fact that Arby cut in front of my Rylot and that was just it, right? I was definitely putting all of my eggs on my Rylot evading and it didn't work out. And that was that attack. That was that loss. And the next one is definitely worse. This was like picking two tanky units into, oh, I ended up changing into Ruel, who didn't resist anything. My Ruel has super high effect resistance, doesn't resist a single debuff, which ruined me. Like, I was like, oh, I'll just have to deal with the Huayang, like, killing my mediator and then me bringing him back. That was kind of like my game plan, but it didn't matter because she didn't resist anything, not a single debuff. Everything was landed onto her. And at this point, there was like no winning. Also, the bomb landed on my Spectine. Uh, Huayang, I was thinking to myself, maybe my Ruel lives this attack up Huayang. No, it's not gonna happen. It just won't. So yeah, those are those attacks. I completely lost that. And then I lose another one. I ended up winning these. These aren't that big of a deal. I ended up winning these. And this is what I mean by having a defense team that is unexpected, where you don't necessarily expect. This Arby was on counter set and Moonlight Dreamblade. I was not expecting that whatsoever. And also, once again, I am putting all of my eggs on hoping that, or what is the saying? Like eggs in the basket or something, on hoping that my Politis stuns them. Like I'm once again hoping I get lucky stuns, which that's like a what, 25% chance on Crown, and it's definitely not worth that. Like it's definitely like you shouldn't like that 25% chance of you winning a fight, like you really shouldn't be drafting your teams where the odds are not in your favor because you are essentially inting at that point, right? There are definitely safer options that I could have went with for this team in particular. Same goes, the bottom two I end up winning. I end up using my Sinful just because. I could have brought Violet into this team with a Cleanser, like Mediator, because I think my Mediator didn't die, so, and play like a slower, tankier, hoping that, I don't get necessarily. Or I could have just not bought this team. That's another point I want to make. It is okay. You do not have to fight. I'm fighting all the main towers in this video, by the way. You don't have to do that. If you feel as though your units are not prepared, you don't think that your units are ready, it is okay to fight what you think are weaker defense teams or weaker players if you are also that weaker player. You do not have to full send onto these main towers only for you to end up losing in the long run, right? It You're not really gaining much out of losing, so well, you're not really like necessarily like hurting the like I guess currency that you get, but you are with mystics. I think you do get less mystics based off of how well you do in your attacks, but not like in a large amount. But if you lost all three of your attacks, you're not going to get that many mystics the next day, right? And you want to get as most mystics as you can, so you want to do your best. Um, but yeah, I guess we can go ahead and show what happens here. I was checking if my Sinful was geared there, but that's not important. So we go into this fight. Um, Hippolytus resists, that which you know everybody resists actually, which is pretty crazy. I don't get the stun, and this is where the Moonlight Dream Blade starts to come off. That was also another big thing. The RB resisted the bomb. That really messed me up because it really put me into this like really trouble spot. Also, the bomb landed on my RB here, which I wasn't too concerned about. Um, I think what I should have done, I could have RNG'd once again, trying to stun the Summertime Iceria, because I think the worst thing in this setup is having my RB die before theirs. Also, my RB's S2 isn't fully Mola. I literally just recently summoned him, so he's not plus 15 yet. So this happens, and then I'm thinking to myself, okay, we still have a chance. My Politis is decently tanky, and we could just see what happens. Now, to be completely honest, I should have had my Politis on, uh, I should have had her on, what is the artifact? Tagahells. I do have a plus 30, I have two plus 30 Tagahells. That would have been a better plan, because I think I could have 100%, well, not really, because I get counterattacked here, and yeah, I get counterattacked, and I like end up losing the fight. But if I was on Tagahells, for example, I could have soul burn. Let's see, I could have soul burn twice, and basically set it up um, so that I end up killing the para as well as the RB, or have the off chance that I do kill the both of them. But with the attack down, there was also no chances of that happening, to be completely honest. But there was still a chance, right? There was just like, don't be afraid also to change like your artifacts when doing your guild attacks. In the middle of like oh, maybe book would be good here, or maybe I should like just put crown on somebody, or whatever you can do to help boost your chances of winning. Do that, and just be aware of RNG. Um, but yeah, as other attack, I end up winning this. So I think that concludes everything for this video. Just some pointers on to what not to do, things to be aware of, things to be, cautious of when doing your guild attacks, and so that you don't like necessarily end them, even if you are the looking at what's happening here. It does very much seem like we're going to lose, but you kind of don't have to like int it. You know what I mean? You don't have to int your attacks just because your guild as a whole might not win, which is kind of like what I did in this video. So, um, but yeah, that concludes this video. If you did enjoy, please remember to like, comment, subscribe. Also, feel free to leave your suggestions and tips on how you draft or what you do when you're drafting guild teams. I also might do a video on using some of the safest units in Guild Wars ever, like your Doris. What else is there? There's like a list of units that are almost like, if I had Dark Corvus, with the whole Dark Corvus 2 Soul Weaver cleave, like, or not really cleave, but like slow fight, there are defense or offense teams that almost win into literally everything, and I could probably do a video on that in the future. Um, but yeah, that concludes everything for this video. Like I said, if you did enjoy, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to do that. It helps out a lot. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.